SB 459 is a good bill. When a worker is misclassified, it affects the way California labor laws such as minimum wage, overtime protection, workers' compensation coverage, family leave, and unemployment insurance, fundamental rights of workers in the state, members, affects the way that all of those are applied. The misclassification of workers results in a loss of payroll tax revenue substantial to this state. And if you care about digging us out of the hole, I ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Wagner.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I have to rise in opposition to this bill. The bill is not in any way simple, in part because the law that we're dealing with here is not simple. If the classification of a worker was a simple process, the law would be unnecessary. We could easily target the bad actors. We could deal with the situation. Unfortunately, the Internal Revenue Code has quite a long list of factors that an employer must consider before deciding the classification of a worker. The courts have added their own gloss. I believe our own tax code has its definitions. The problem is there are a whole lot of different definitions, some of them working at cross purposes, some of them working flatly contradictory, and it is virtually impossible in any kind of a close case to say with assurance how a worker should be characterized. And yet, we're going to impose somewhat significant penalties on an employer who may get it wrong. I hear that the amendments have been taken. Frankly, they're not bad. They have narrowed the bill, but they haven't eliminated that problem. The bad actor is not the only one who's going to be left exposed. You're going to be exposed if you're an employer in the state of California and make a mistake, even if you've hired an attorney to help walk through the complicated process. If you and that lawyer make a mistake because the tax code is interpreted by a judge differently than you and your lawyer would have, if our own state tax code was interpreted differently, if there are conflicting decisions in a particular jurisdiction, if you get it wrong, you, the business owner, are going to get smacked and smacked mightily by this state. If we can't clarify the law, if we can't remove the uncertainty, we are again just further penalizing business. Who wants to hire under those circumstances? Who wants to take the risk of bringing somebody aboard and finding later that you've mischaracterized them? And you're not only dealing with a lawsuit, but you're dealing with the state of California and its weight coming down on you. Let's say no to this bill. Let's work on clarifying some of the underlying inconsistencies in classification. Let's do that to provide the type of certainty to allow our businesses the comfort that they can hire in peace, as we keep encouraging them to do, without worrying about being second-guessed. Let's fix that law. Let's not compound the problem with this one. I urge a no vote on this one, my friends. Thank you.
Ms. Gaines.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in opposition to this measure. Honest business owners across California go to great lengths to comply with the law and to make sure their business is complying with rules and regulations required in the state. But when you have conflicting and confusing regulations, as you do with the laws governing independent contractors, a business owner is in a tough spot. Their lawyer may have assured them that they are complying with the law, but based on the arbitrary nature with which this law is interpreted and applied, they could end up facing major fines under this bill for no fault of their own. It makes no sense, members. The reason we're facing this confusion is because the laws passed by this legislature. We could easily pass a measure that clearly spells out which worker is an employee and which is an independent contractor. But the majority party in this body refuses to act because the trial lawyers and the union bosses reject a clarification in the law. In the meantime, honest business owners could be the subject of major fines, and more businesses and jobs will leave the state of California because of the laws enacted by this legislature. Before we even consider increasing fines, we should act to clarify the law. I ask for a no vote.
Mr. Allen.
Yes, I rise to support and ask for a yes vote on 459. As our labor attorney for over 30 years, I can tell you that the standard here requiring a willful misclassification means that essentially you availed yourself of no advice or analysis before you decided to certify that you're an independent contractor. We talk a lot about the underground economy here and trying to not reward the bad actors. I think this is a good step forward. I had some questions from some of the members here today, and really the willful standard is very high in order to accrue the penalties. And most reasonable business people usually do consult with someone who has expertise in this area, and thereby they would avoid the fines and the penalties. So I urge an aye vote. Thank you.
Mr. Jeffries.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to speak in opposition, not because I don't think there's some good intent here somewhere in this bill, but the issue really comes down to the application. And I have to be honest and say I frankly don't trust our state bureaucracy, our state regulators, to apply this in a fair manner. And I say this from experience with a very good friend who is a contractor. He has no employees. He's a single individual owner, general contractor. He hired a backhoe operator who had a business card, had his name on the side of his truck, the name on his backhoe, advertised in the newspapers for work. He hired him to do some work on a construction job. The state determined after he had been paid that he should have been treated as an employee, not as an independent contractor. The fines, the fees, the items that the contractor had to pay after the job had been settled, after everybody had been paid, nearly bankrupted this one contractor because he misinterpreted, he misrepresented, he didn't properly state that this individual was an employee. This individual was not an employee, but the state bureaucracy, the regulators, the folks out there who are interpreting this decided to punish this one small businessman. Folks, these regulations have severe consequences. And I cannot today tell you that this is going to fix that. In fact, my fear is that it will make it worse on some of the small business owners out there. I encourage a no vote.
Mr. Morell.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I just want to encourage our members here that we should start valuing businesses here and making it easy for them to compete, not more difficult. This bill does contain a lot of things. It sanctions, it punishes, and it has fees, excessive fees, up to $25,000 per violation. These punishments are left up to bureaucrats to decide and define and to dictate how much an employer will have to pay to run his or her own business. And remember, the IRS, as well as State Franchise Board, does have laws and a system. They'll get their money. This bill is another, I think, insult to business. It'll hurt our state economy. And instead of setting up business in our state to fail, I would just say let's simplify and clarify the law, making sure that our businesses can thrive here in our state. So I respectfully ask for a no vote on this.
Seeing no further questions or debate, Mr. Gatto, you may close.
Thank you, colleagues. And as many of you know, my colleague from Irvine is a member of the second most popular profession. The first, of course, being legislators. The second most popular profession being attorneys. So he knows that this legislation has a willful standard, and that's a very tough standard. That means that you have to knowingly break the law. It's like a battery. You know, battery is the willful punching somebody, right? If you're having a seizure and you're flailing about and you end up hitting somebody, that's not a battery. It requires willfulness. It's the same thing in this legislation. This only goes after those who willfully break the law, those who know that they have an employee who should be an employee, and instead they misclassify that employee as an independent contractor. My colleague from Rancho Cucamonga made some good points, but one point that I don't understand is the one that this might hurt businesses. Well, actually, I disagree. You know, we set rules here. We set laws, and the laws have to be followed. And the business that you end up hurting, if you end up voting no on this, might be the business you want to help. Because whenever we allow a business to get away with misclassifying a worker, then the business next door has to pay into payroll taxes and has to pay into all that things. And the other business that misclassifies a worker is freeloading. So the business you might put out of business is, if you vote no on this, you might put the law-abiding business out of business. And I think that's a very, very important point. This has a knowing standard. That's a standard that is well established in state law and has been established for many, many times. This is a good bill. I ask for your aye vote.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 43, noes 22. Measure passes. File item 50, SB 536. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 536 by Senator DeSanti and others, enacting to local government finance and declaring the urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
Ms. Buchanan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. SB 536 by Senator DeSanti is a district bill that only applies to one parcel of land in my district within the city of Oakley. The California Public Utilities Commission and California Energy Commission have approved the proposal to construct a 600 megawatt power plant in the city of Oakley. Current law creates a disincentive for the city of Oakley to have the power plant generating facility for a number of reasons, including that it is a new city with low property tax revenue. Specifically, current law provides the city of Oakley and the redevelopment agency a total of less than $700,000 for an estimated assessed value of $750 million, which will provide an estimated $7.5 million in tax revenue. This is far less than 10% of the total tax revenue. The residents of Oakley will be the most impacted by a power plant being built within their community, and without the financial incentive to reduce blight in the community and be able to provide the necessary services to the facility, there is no reason for the city of Oakley to support this facility. This bill provides the necessary financial benefits to the city of Oakley to host a power generating facility. Communities that are willing to host these facilities that provide statewide benefit should be provided adequate resources to address any and all impacts that may arise, as well as provide additional benefits to the community. I respectfully ask your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Ms. Buchanan moves the call. File item 51, SB 676. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 676 by Senator Leno, an act relating to industrial hemp.
Mr. Hill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, SB 676 is about regulatory reform and getting government out of the way so the free market can thrive. Industrial hemp is a variety of the species Cannabis sativa that has no psychoactive qualities because it contains less than 0.3% of 1% THC. Even though it is a distant cousin of marijuana, which ranges from 3 to 15% THC, industrial hemp is not a drug and is not marijuana. Hemp has a deep history in our nation. The Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria crossed the Atlantic with sails made of hemp. Thomas Jefferson and George Washington grew hemp, which was legal tender until 1818. During World War II, the U.S. government encouraged American farmers to grow hemp in support of the war effort. Today, hemp stalk, fiber, oil, and non-viable seed are exempt from the definition of marijuana, and all of these products are legally imported from Europe, Canada, and China. Industrial hemp is used to manufacture a vast array of foods, personal care products, and building materials. The U.S. market is currently valued at over $400 million annually, and more than 55%, and this is important, members, more than 55% of industry profits are generated by California companies. These are our companies, and our farmers should be able to supply them. Hemp is an extremely beneficial crop for farmers because it grows in dense groves. Hemp is a smoother crop and requires little or no pesticides or herbicides. Hemp is also a great crop rotator as it leaves nutrients in the soil for the next crop. This bill is a reasonable approach and creates an 8-year, 4-county pilot program in Imperial, Kern, Kings, and San Joaquin counties. After 6 years, the Attorney General is required to report to the legislature on the law enforcement impacts of industrial hemp cultivation in the pilot program counties. At that time, the Hemp Industries Association also is required to report to the legislature on the economic impacts of hemp. SB 676 has been carefully crafted to comply with federal law and utilizes smart, largely self-regulating mechanisms without undue burdens on farmers. The bill only permits cultivation of industrial hemp when grown as an agricultural field crop in a minimum of 5 acres or in a research setting. Any clandestine grove of hemp will be considered marijuana regardless of the THC content. Farmers must obtain a laboratory test report from a federal DEA registered laboratory documenting that the THC content is within the international standard of less than 0.3%. If you do not pass the test, you cannot sell your product. This bill is supported by numerous businesses, labor organizations, agricultural organizations, including the California Grange and the California Certified Organic Farmers. SB 676 will relieve California farmers of the senseless prohibition on industrial hemp cultivation. California farmers are being denied access to a profitable and environmentally beneficial crop that can provide food, clothing, shelter, and energy. Industrial hemp would provide a huge benefit to farmers, manufacturers, and the environment, and will create jobs in a time when we need to foster new industries and new jobs. I ask for your aye vote, members.
Mr. Norby.
I rise in support also, Madam Speaker, of SB 676. For those in this body, and that includes all of us who favor jobs, the freedom to farm, who favor lifting pointless regulations on farmers and businesses' ability to produce and grow valuable crops, you should also support this bill. It only applies to 4 counties, Kings, Kern, San Joaquin, and Imperial. It's a pilot project of only 8 years, so it is limited in scope, but it's an important first step. Industrial hemp, which is a distant cousin to marijuana, but not the same as marijuana. Now, we all have a lot of distant cousins here, and we know they're very different than us. They act different, and if any one of them walked onto this floor, we'd know that it wasn't us. They're a distant cousin, but it's not the same as being industrial hemp. But by a quirk of federal law, industrial hemp has been included in with the ban. But this valuable product, which is legal to import to California, but not legal to grow, out of this product, you can make rope, the best rope in the world, clothes from its seeds and oils, many valuable products. Now it's grown legally in Canada, Mexico, China. We're importing hemp products from those countries, adding to the imbalance of payments. Yet California farmers are prohibited from growing it. Now, the biggest 2 arguments against the bill are, number one, that even if this passes today, it still is an apparent violation of federal law. But federal law on this has not been consistent. Through 2 world wars, American farmers were encouraged to grow hemp because the Navy needed it, the Army needed it, we needed it for rope and other important things. Currently, President Obama has said his policy is to respect the rights of states to have their own hemp policies. Leading presidential candidates, including Ron Paul and Rick Perry on the Republican side, have also said, if elected president, they will respect states' rights in this area and will engage in no activity to try to control or obliterate industrial hemp. Second argument is that, well, it looks too much like marijuana, and they'll be growing industrial marijuana inside hemp fields. But you can't grow the two together. Ask the farm bureaus involved who support this. If you grow the marijuana near the hemp reduces the THC content of the marijuana, and the marijuana becomes useless, either as fiber or as a psychoactive drug. So you don't grow them together. You can't grow them together. There are many crops that may look alike. Poppies, the wrong kind of poppy, can be smoked, can be used for a psychoactive drug. That doesn't prevent us from having it as our state flower, a different kind of poppy. Hemp is to marijuana as grape juice is to wine. It may look the same, it's completely different. It's a valuable product. Let's allow Californians to grow it. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, this bill is about rope, not dope.
Members, no clapping on the floor. Mr. Berryhill.
Madam Speaker, members, I too rise to support SB 676. For my colleagues that served with Assemblyman Chuck DeVore, Chuck was always a co-author on this bill. Hemp, as my colleague from Orange County talked about, grown commercially looks nothing like marijuana. It looks more like a cornfield. Members, we do talk about creating jobs and creating an atmosphere for job creation. Hemp production in the Valley could lead to many manufacturing jobs that have been lost over the years. And so, with this being a pilot project, after seeing how hemp is grown in a commercial fashion, I'm convinced that the safeguards are in place in this bill and that this will be good for job growth and good for farming. So I urge an aye vote.
Dr. Halderman.
I'm nothing if not pro-ag, but it did concern me that the California Peace Officers Association, the California Narcotics Officers Association, and the California Police Chiefs Association, in addition to LA's deputy sheriffs, were in opposition to this bill. So I talked to the law enforcement folks in my own community in Fresno and the Central Valley. And I actually think that one of my colleagues made the argument for me. The problem is really not fiber, it's not oil, it's not seeds. The problem is you can't teach pharmacologically inert hemp not to cross-pollinate with pharmacologically active marijuana. They are cousins. And until that is solved, there is nothing such as purely a hemp crop. It doesn't exist because our friends who murder across the Central Valley in these fields know better than to put the actual real marijuana plants on the outside. They are committed to adding hemp to their products. And for that reason, I request a no vote.
Ms. Galgiani.
Thank you. I too rise in support of the bill. While our Central Valley economy is going to pot, we can assure that our farmers will be rolling in dough.
Mr. Hill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I guess we'd have to be concerned if they were second cousins, whether they're a problem or not. But the relationship between the different types of hemp and marijuana, the two things: one, it has to be in a 5-acre grove. That's the only the minimum size has to be clearly marked on the outside, and no one in their right mind who would be growing marijuana would then try to cross-pollinate or cultivate it with hemp. The problem with that is that once you do, you will dilute the marijuana to a point where it loses its value, and you would never want to use it in any form. So cross-pollination is not something anyone would want to have those plants anywhere near a good, strong marijuana plant if you have the hemp. So and that's the problem. It would lose its strength, and it would lose its value as an illegal commodity today. So, members, I think this is a good bill. It's a good bill for agriculture. It makes California, brings it into line, and rather, why should we be importing it from Canada and other countries when we can grow it right here and provide jobs for Californians? I urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 46, noes 19. Measure passes. File item 52, pass and retain. File item 53, SB 850. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 850 by Senator Little, an act relating to medical records.
Mr. Monning.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, SB 850 requires electronic health record systems to automatically record and preserve changes or deletions made to electronically stored medical information, including the identity of the person who accessed and changed the medical information, the date and time that the information was accessed, and the change that was made to the medical information. This bill conforms with federal regulations which require electronic health record systems to record modifications. Placing these protections in California statute provides consumers with additional opportunities to understand and utilize their legal rights to protect the accuracy and integrity of their medical records. This is an important patient safety measure that recognizes the modernization of patient medical records and helps ensure security and integrity of electronic health records. SB 850 has no known opposition and has received bipartisan support. I ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Wagner?
I just want to be clear in taking a look at this bill in committee, the folks that were for it and the folks that were opposed to it. It's pitched to us as a fairly common sense bill to make sure our medical records are all accurate. It's a patient protection issue, et cetera. And yet, when you look at the bill, in fact, who's behind it, I found the Medical Association nowhere near this bill, and the Hospital Association nowhere near this bill, and the Patient Protection Agency's nowhere near this bill. It was only a bill proposed, supported by, and pushed by the trial lawyers. So let's just make sure we're clear. This is not a bill that is aimed at patient protection. This is a bill that is aimed at making it easier for trial lawyers at the end of the day to sue doctors, sue hospitals, prove their case, whether or not the records are indeed accurate or whether or not the changes to the records are in fact medically appropriate. This is a lawyer protection measure, not a patient protection measure. In some ways, I find it to be quite cynical. I was accused by the author of being cynical in my question. I will admit that to be true. I find the bill itself to be somewhat cynical. It will not give us the patient protection that its supporters claim, and for that reason, with all due respect to the author and trying not to sound cynical, but I find in this building I sometimes can't keep up, I urge a no vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, Mr. Monning, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Again, there's no opposition on record. This bill, authored by Senator Leno, took into consideration concerns of the Hospital Association, of the CMA, and worked with some of the data management companies to remove their concerns and opposition. Opponents are suggesting on the floor that this is a bill solely advanced by consumer attorneys. Well, there was testimony in committee from consumers who had suffered medical consequences because of the inability to access prior changes in medical records that would have informed a treating physician of an appropriate course of action that would have minimized and reduced harm. This is in compliance with federal regulations. We are in an era of electronic medical records. I urge your aye vote.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 53, noes 17. Measure passes. File item 54, SB 20. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 20 by Senator Padilla and Act relating to food facilities.
Mr. Lara.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, California is the first state in the nation to require nutritional information on menus and menu boards at large chain restaurants with SB 1420 by Senator Padilla. Since the implementation of SB 1420, menu labeling has become national policy under the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, the federal health care reform. The Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act included menu labeling language that was modeled after California's menu labeling law. SB 20 conforms California's menu labeling standards to federal menu labeling standards. There's no opposition to this bill. Amendments were taken on the floor, were technical and clarifying in nature. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 69, no 0. Measure passes. File item 55, SB 737. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 737 by Senator Walters, an act relating to organized camps.
Ms. Grove.
I thank you, Madam Speaker. SB 37 will require the Department of Public Health to obtain an input and advice of organizations in the field in order to implement a regulatory structure appropriate and necessary for day camps and their operation. This bill will also increase authorization for participating programs and after-school learning and safe neighborhood partnership programs to operate up to 30 to 60 hours a week while still providing that no individual child can be in daycare for more than 30 hours a week. The bill will also be more will offer more flexibility while at the same time not increasing the individual child's overall time in the care. SB 737 will also modify the definition of the term organized camp by further defining a term organized day camp and require an organization day camp to develop an operating plan to file a plan with the local health department. The camp must also post a plan in a conspicuous location on the website associated with the camp, if available. And finally, the amendments that we adopted last week that we got bipartisan support on, revise the background security check process for camp directors and camp counselors, requiring them to either be registered with the Trust Line Registry or for the day camp owners to confirm that the director or the counselor is not listed on the U.S. Department of Justice National Sex Offender Registry. The amendments further encourage directors and counselors to seek criminal history background checks from the California Department of Justice and the Bureau of Identification and Information, and I would ask you to support SB 737.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 57, noes 3. Measure passes. File item 56, SCR 49. Clerk will read.
Senate concurrent resolution 49 by Senator Gaines and others relative to the Olympic Games.
Ms. Gaines.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I rise to present Senate Concurrent Resolution 49. This resolution recognizes June 23, 2011 as International Olympic Day, a day that has been celebrated for the last 63 years to honor dedicated athletes who are pursuing their Olympic dreams. This resolution would also continue to encourage and appreciate the work of the California Winter Games Committee in conjunction with the Reno Tahoe Winter Games Coalition to bring the Winter Games to Lake Tahoe. The Salt Lake City Winter Olympic Games created 35,000 jobs in 2002. A Lake Tahoe Winter Olympic Game would stimulate the economy for the Northern California region and the state. I ask for your support to not only honor this day of recognition, but to support the efforts to bring back the Winter Games to our region so we might all benefit from the tremendous boost in the economy, leave a legacy of infrastructure behind us, and marvel at the achievements of the world's greatest athletes. While June 23, 2011 has passed, recognizing Olympic athletes and encouraging another Lake Tahoe Winter Olympic Games is still worth supporting today. I ask for your aye vote.
Ms. Huber.
I rise in support of this ACR. Just want to remind our SCR. I just want to remind everyone this is about bringing jobs to California and El Dorado County, and I urge your aye vote.
Mr. Dickinson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I too support this resolution exuberantly because it would be terrific to bring the Winter Olympic Games back to the Lake Tahoe area, and it would be a great boon to all of not just Northern California, but indeed California in general.
Okay, we can take a voice vote on this item. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The measure is adopted. File item 57, pass and retain. File item 58, SB 53. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 53 by Senator Calderon and others, an act relating to real estate licenses.
Ms. Harkey.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. SB 53 makes 8 different sets of changes to California's real estate law to give the Department of Real Estate more enforcement tools to crack down against licensees and unlicensed persons who violate real estate law. This is much needed in this age of bad real estate transactions and all the experiences we've been having over the past couple of years. The bill is supported by the California Association of Realtors, California Mortgage Association, and the Escrow Institute of California. There's no opposition to this measure. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 69, no 0. Measure passes. File item 59, SB 869. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 869 by Senator Yi, an act relating to automotive repair dealers.
Ms. Hayashi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. SB 869 makes it a misdemeanor when an automotive repair dealer fails to repair and restore an airbag. I respectfully request an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 65, no 0. Measure passes. File item 60, SB 879. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 879 by Senator Padilla and others, an act relating to public utilities.
Mr. Hill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Since the tragedy of San Bruno, I've been very involved in working with affected parties and the PUC to ensure that our gas pipelines in California are safe and that we calm the fears of the public concerning the possibility of future incidents. This is one of 5 bills seeking to address those issues. SB 879 by Padilla provides transparency in PUC rate making by requiring that any funding used for repair, maintenance, and replacement of natural gas pipelines be segregated into what is known as a balancing account, which would prohibit the utility from shifting the funds to other purposes without Commission approval. The second portion of this bill increases the fining authority of the PUC from $20,000 to $50,000 per offense. The $20,000 cap has been in place since 1993 and has not been adjusted for inflation. Given the risk of public safety from the violation of pipeline and other safety rules, the current cap on fines is too low and no longer a deterrent. The amount needs to be increased. I ask for your aye votes, members.
Mr. Dickinson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Accountability and Administrative Review Committee recently held a hearing on the PUC's oversight of PG&E with respect to the explosions that occurred here in Rancho Cordova on Christmas Eve of 2008 and the San Bruno explosion. What we found, among other things, was clear and convincing evidence that the enforcement scheme that's available to the PUC has been little used but is certainly ineffective and incomplete. I support this legislation because it will, in part, give the PUC the tools necessary to be a more appropriate overseer and a more active overseer of the activities of the various utilities on gas pipeline transmission.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 70, no 0. Measure passes. And I'd like, we have a guest here on behalf of Mr. Jim Nielsen. It's Colusa County member of the Board of Supervisors, Kim Van. Welcome, Ms. Van. Mr. Calderon.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I request unanimous consent to suspend JR 62, Joint Rule 62, to allow the Health Committee to meet and to hear AB 922 today upon call of the chair in a room to be announced.
Without objection, clerk will note. And pursuant to Assembly Rule 77.2, I'm re-referring AB 922 by Mr. Monning to the Committee on Health.
Mr. Calderon, you are recognized.
I want to clarify on that last motion. I had requested unanimous consent to waive Rule 62A, so that the monitoring measure may be heard in committee today.
Okay, the clerk will note. File item 61, pass and retain. File item 62, SB 222. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 222 by Senator Alquist and others, an act relating to health care coverage.
Ms. Lowenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. SB 222 ensures that women have access to health insurance policies with maternity coverage. Women buying their own health insurance in the individual market are having an increasingly difficult time finding coverage that includes maternity care. In 2004, 82% of policies in the individual market contain maternity coverage. Today, only 12% of such policies have maternity coverage. If this trend continues, women may be left unable to find any policies with maternity coverage. The author worked diligently with the insurance companies to remove their opposition. No insurance company opposes this measure. The measure has bipartisan support, and I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. Ayes 45, no 17. The measure passes. File item 63, SB 223. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 223 by Senator Leno and others, an act relating to local government finance.
Ms. Ma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. SB 223 is about local control and local voter determination. In the past few years, vital local services such as public safety, health, social service, and transit have experienced dramatic cuts in state and federal funding, and this year is no exception. SB 223 gives the San Francisco voters local control in two ways. It gives us another way to support critical services as well as provide a countywide vote to approve the assessment on a countywide ballot. Before being presented to voters, the local assessment must be approved by the Board of Supervisors with a 2/3 vote. The Board of Supervisors' approval takes the form of an ordinance for general revenue purposes, and therefore only a majority vote is constitutionally required for the ballot measure to pass. Voters also have an opportunity to weigh in earlier when the County Board of Supervisors must approve it by a 2/3 vote. If passed by the voters, the City and County of San Francisco could produce up to $45 million in additional revenue at no cost to the state. This money then can be used to fund public transit, government facilities that are in disrepair, or to provide health care for residents. SB 223 gives local voters the option to keep their essential public services whole and respects the historic vehicle license fee cap by requiring that the combined local and state assessments cannot exceed 2%. This year, much of our budget conversations and actions have been to shift money, more authority and responsibility to local governments and to the voters. SB 223 creates an important mechanism to support local programs during these difficult times. This bill is sponsored by the San Francisco Chamber of Commerce and has strong support from the San Francisco Labor Council and others. Recent amendments remove the opposition of the Alliance of Automobile Manufacturers, and the California Chamber of Commerce is neutral on this bill. Respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Hagman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I must regretfully rise to oppose this bill.
Yeah.
Let's look at what the letter of Proposition 218 stated. Basically, it wanted 2/3 of the legislature to pass on taxes. This is kind of in and run around here. I appreciate the fact that the Board of Supervisors of San Francisco have to have 2/3 vote, but then it goes to the the voters of San Francisco for a majority vote only. So the 2/3 does not apply to it. This is kind of in and around what the voters told us they wanted to do. This is just started with San Francisco, but every county, once this passes, is going to come back to do this. It's not what the voters want us to do in these difficult times. They want us to live within our means like the rest of the state is having to do. I request your no vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, Ms. Ma, you may close.
This is about, again, local control and allowing cities and counties, if they want, to assess themselves to pay for the vital services that they need. Respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Ms. Ma moves the call. File item 64, pass and retain. File item 65, SB 360. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 360 by Senator DeSaulnier, an act relating to controlled substances.
Mr. Fletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I'm pleased to present SB 360 by Senator DeSaulnier, which seeks to combat the steadily worsening prescription drug abuse crisis we face in California. The bill updates the California Controlled Substance Utilization Review and Evaluation System so the Department of Justice can better utilize automatic prescription drug monitoring programs. The bill also prevents additional protections on prescription drug forms to deter fraudulent prescriptions and illegal distribution of controlled substances. Request your support of SB 360.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll and tally a vote. Ayes 67, noes 13. The measure passes. File item 66, SB 369. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 369 by Senator Evans, an act relating to commercial fishing.
Mr. Monning.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. SB 369 is the culmination of a long effort to ensure that long-term economic and environmental sustainability of California's $124 million Dungeness crab fishery. This is a bill that will ensure the crab fishery remains economically and environmentally sustainable. Specifically, SB 369 extends existing law regulating the very successful Dungeness crab limited entry program, which is set to expire in January. It establishes a new crab trap limit program that ensures California's fleet can compete fairly with out-of-state vessels and fish. It reduces the amount of derelict gear in the water, preventing lethal entanglements with marine mammals, and it ensures that stakeholders in the crab industry continue to have a voice through the reestablishment of the Dungeness Crab Task Force. SB 369 has the support of the Pacific Coast Federation of Fishermen's Associations, the San Francisco Crab Boat Owners Association, and the Environmental Defense Fund. On behalf of Senator Evans, I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Mr. Monning moves the call. File item 67, SB 450. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 450 by Senator Lowenthal and others, an act relating to redevelopment.
Ms. Lowenthal. I'm sorry, Ms. Torres.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. As we discussed the fate of redevelopment this year, there has been broad consensus that we need reforms. Senate Bill 450 represents a comprehensive set of reforms of how redevelopment agencies spend their low and moderate income housing funds. It clarifies statutes of limitations and establishes legal remedies for noncompliance. Senate Bill 450 has received unanimous support to date. I urge your aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. Ayes 58, noes 0. The measure passes. We're going to go back temporarily on file to file item 64. Again, we're going to go back just a few bumps back to file item 64, which is SB 294. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 294 by Senator Price, an act relating to public employees' retirement.
Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. SB 294 relating to emerging investment managers. Mr. Speaker and members, this bill requires that our state's public pension funds to adopt a 5-year strategic plan to expand the participation of emerging investment managers and to annually report on their progress. It additionally intends to encourage expanded opportunities for newer and smaller investment companies in the state procurement of financial services, including the management of assets managed by CalPERS and STRS. SB 294 is also consistent with the policies and efforts of both pension funds to enhance transparency and to expand emerging manager diversity. Both funds have been national leaders in this area and support this bill. This bill has no opposition, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members, clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 41, noes 21. The measure passes. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to proceed in file order, but we're going to go slightly out of order. We're going to take up the support positions. Again, we're going to proceed in file order, but we're going to take up all those that are support. We've got about 20 of them to go through. We're going to go through them at a very fast clip. I asked for a minimum of debate. I'm going to impose a slightly shortening of the speeches for opening speeches and probably for comments as well. So let's get going, and we're going to go first with file item 68, SB 540, our first support. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 540 by Senator Price, an act relating to industry.
Ms. Hayashi.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker and members, SB 540 extends the sunset date of the Dental Board of California to January 1st, 2016, and adds one public member to the board. I respectfully request an aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 66, no 0. The measure passes. File item 69, SB 551. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 551 by Senator DeSaulnier, an act relating to tied lands and making appropriation therefore.
Ms. Bonilla.
SB 551 is a bill for a city within my district that will transfer lands surrounding the Marina of Pittsburgh from the state to the city of Pittsburgh. It's Pittsburgh's desire to develop its waterfront and take advantage of its location along the Deepwater Channel to expand recreational and other opportunities. 551 has no opposition and has received strong bipartisan support. I ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 56, noes 5. The measure passes. File item 72, SB 695. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 695 by Senator Hancock, an act relating to Medi-Cal.
Mr. Monning. Passed temporarily. File item 73, SB 698. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 698 by Senator Liu, an act relating to workforce development.
Mr. Lara.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, SB 698 seeks to raise the bar statewide on the performance of California's 49 local workforce investment boards by establishing a high-performance standard that would hold local WIBs accountable to consistent performance outcomes. Specifically, AB 698 would require the governor to establish standards for certification of high-performance local workforce investment boards in accordance with specified criteria. This bill would also require the governor and the legislature to reserve a portion of 15% discretionary workforce investment Act funds for high-performance local workforce investment boards. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 68, no 0. The measure passes. File item 74, SB 771. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 771 by Senator Kehoe and others, an act relating to energy.
Mr. V. Manuel Perez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. SB 771 broadens the list of ultra-low emissions equipment that may be eligible to receive funding under the State Treasurer's California Alternative Energy and Advanced Transportation Financing Authority, known as CAFA. CAFA is a financial assistance program that rewards specified renewable power and renewable power generating technologies. While CAFA currently includes ultra-low emission equipment for energy that can be generated from fuel cells, it does not include landfill gas and digester turbines, engines, and microturbines that can also generate ultra-low emission renewable power using methane gases from landfills and dairy farms. This bill has no listed opposition. It's got bipartisan support, and I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. Ayes 66, no 0. The measure passes. File item 76, SB 15. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 15 by Senator DeSaulnier and others, an act relating to the state budget.
Mr. Fuhrer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. So folks who will recall that last year Senator DeSaulnier in the Senate and I in this House attempted to lead an effort engaging in reform of how we do our budgeting process and other important things here in the state legislature. Out of that process, we heard that it was important to get more multi-year budget information so we could make decisions with full understanding of their implications for the out years. This bill is an outgrowth of that process, and so far it has achieved bipartisan support. I urge an aye vote today.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote.
Luis.
All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 64, noes 2. The measure passes. File item 78, SB 61. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 61 by Senator Pavley, an act relating to wiretapping.
Mr. Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. SB 61 is sponsored by the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office and would extend the January 2012 sunset on California's wiretap law to January 2015. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. Ayes 62, no 0. The measure passes. File item 79, SB 108. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 108 by Senator Rubio, an act relating to surface mining.
Passed temporarily. File item 80, SB 139. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 139 by Senator Alquist, an act relating to corrections.
Mr. Cedillo.
Simple bill says that we should not have prisoners in jail with cell phones so that they can commit other crimes. I ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 68, no 0. The measure passes. File item 81, SB 179. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 179 by Senator Pavley, an act relating to sex offenders.
Mr. Cedillo.
Members ask you to join the Los Angeles District Attorneys Association in this effort to close the legal loophole to prevent sex offenders from being unsupervised. I ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 69, no 0. The measure passes. File item 82 through 84 pass and retain. File item 85, SB 436. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 436 by Senator Kehoe and others, an act relating to land use.
Mr. Alejo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I have joined Senator Kehoe in authoring this bill after introducing a similar bill which provides for a more efficient way to carry out projects that require land mitigation, like transportation projects Over the past several years, state and local agencies have developed a productive public-private partnership with nonprofits and special districts to identify, hold, and manage lands for mitigation. SB 436 builds on that public-private partnership by allowing nonprofits and special districts to also hold the endowment funds for the property they own and manage. This bill is permissive. It does not require the agency to have the entity hold the endowment funds, but the entity may hold the endowment if they meet the requirements and standards in the bill. This creates a more efficient process for project developers and assures strong protections for the endowment funds. Nice and quiet. All right. I can proceed. SB 436 will provide important safeguards to improve land management and the funds that are used to manage the property in the future. This bill is co-sponsored by the California Council on Land Trust, is supported by the land trust community, local transportation authorities, water utilities, and others. There is no opposition to this bill. There is no opposition to this bill. The bill has received strong bipartisan support. My bill had a 75-1 vote. I ask for your aye vote.
Colleagues, I've been asked to remind you to keep your reading to a minimum. Thank you very much. Seeing no questions in debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 65, no 0. The measure passes. File item 86 through 89, pass and retain. File item 90, SB 753. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 753 by Senator Padilla and others, an act related to pupils.
Ms. Brownlee.
Thank you. This is a common sense bill that will help to assess English language learners. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 69, no 0. The measure passes. File items 91 through 93, pass and retain. File items 94 through 96, pass and retain. File item 97 for purposes of amendment, SB 923. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 923 with amendments by Assemblymember Solorio.
Mr. Solorio.
Mr. Speaker, I have Chapter 9 amendments. They're at the desk. I ask that the bill be put back out to print and back on file. Ask for your aye vote.
Without objection, we can take a voice vote on these amendments. All those in favor say aye. These are chaptering out amendments, Mr. Hagman? Okay, exempt from the deadline. So all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. The amendments are adopted, out to print and back on file. File item 98, SB 576. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 576 by Senator Calderon, an act relating to sentencing.
Mr. Cedillo. Pass and retain. File item 99 through 101, pass and retain. File item 102 through 104, pass and retain. File item 105, pass and retain. I'm going to move back on file now to file number 82, which is SB 293. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 293 by Senator Padilla, an act relating to payment bonds.
Strike that. That is the wrong file number. We're going to move to file number 72, which is SB 695. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 695 by Senator Hancock, an act relating to Medi-Cal.
Mr. Monning.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Senator Hancock, I present SB 695, will enable counties to use their own funds voluntarily as the match for federal Medicaid funds to provide medical and mental health services to young people temporarily placed in county juvenile detention facilities. The funds would only be available for youths who are Medi-Cal eligible and only until their case is adjudicated. Counties that participate in the program will also pay the state's cost to administer and implement the program. SB 695 would allow counties to reduce the amount they already spend by almost half by substituting federal funds for county dollars. This measure is consistent with federal law as it has been applied in other states for several years. Dramatic results in just one of those states, New Mexico, shows that providing proper services to these youths early helps to deter them from what otherwise might become a life of crime. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 63, no 0. The measure passes. Colleagues, we have a couple more supports with authors who are in the Senate. Okay, we're going to move now to file item 82. Mr. Fuentes, file item 82, which is SB 293. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 293 by Senator Padilla, an act relating to payment bonds.
Mr. Fuentes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. SB 293 by Senator Padilla addresses payment issues within the construction industry, an important part of California's economy. In February of 2006, almost 1 million Californians were employed in construction trades. This bill would accelerate progress payment schedules from 10 to 7 days. It exempts laborers from having to file a preliminary bond notice. It also stipulates that a subcontractor who has no direct contractual relationship with the general contractor cannot make a late payment claim if all progress payments have been made in good faith. And finally, it limits retention withholdings from exceeding 5% on a public works project. Members, this bill is similar to a bill that was authored by myself last year, received strong bipartisan support. Respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 61, noes 2. The measure passes. We're going to move to file item 94, which is SB 933. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 933 by Senator Runner, an act relating to professions and vocations.
Mr. Knight.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. It's a great bill. Everybody voted for it before. Vote aye.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 63, noes 0. The measure passes. Okay, we're going to move to file item 102, which is one of the last of our supports. This is SB 503. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 503 by Senator Vargas, an act relating to judges' retirement.
Mr. Wykowski.
Mr. Speaker, I present Senate Bill 503. This bill will allow judges participating in the judges' retirement system the option to make a one-time written election for the retirement plan for any number of years of services as a subordinate judicial officer. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 56, noes 3. The measure passes. Okay, we're going to move to file item 100. File item 100, which is SB 368. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 368 by Senator Liu, an act relating to developmental services.
Mr. Bell.
Mr. Speaker and fellow members, I ask your aye vote for SB 368. This bill allows the court to appoint an individual to represent children in foster care who have no parents in matters related to developmental services. The bill has unanimous support. I urge an aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. Ayes 68, no 0. The measure passes. File item 99. File item 99. This is SB 217. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 217 by Senator Vargas, an act relating to mortgage loan originators.
Mr. Eng.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. This bill will update California's state law to reflect federal law. Recent amendments address technical concerns. The bill is supported by several insurance companies as well as the California Bankers Association and Mortgage Association. The bill has no opposition. Respectfully request an aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 72, no 0. The measure passes. Okay, file item 79. File item 79, SB 108. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 108 by Senator Rubio, an act relating to surface mining.
Mr. Dickinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, SB 108 provides relief to an important segment of our economy that's been extremely hard hit during the recession. California's producers of construction materials, those that mine the aggregates we use to build our roads and our schools and our sidewalks. The State Mining and Geology Board has identified an issue in their annual report to the legislature is needing a legislative solution in order to provide relief. And that's exactly what SB 108 does by making sure that the definition of when a mine is idle doesn't prohibit those who mine aggregate from going back and being able to re-operate the mine under appropriate circumstances. The bill adjusts the criteria under which a mine may be considered idle and therefore in danger of being considered abandoned by statute. It also makes other provisions. It has no opposition and bipartisan support, no votes. And I would respectfully request an aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 65, no 0. The measure passes. Okay, colleagues, that was great work. I appreciate it. We are done with the supports for the time being. We're going to go back through the file. We're going to move back right now to file item 13, which is AB 532. File item 13, AB 532. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 532 by Assembly Member Emmanuel Perez, an act relating to people assessments.
Mr. Perez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Amendments taken in AB 532 in the Senate clarify the intent of the bill, which help to reduce costs associated with its implementation. This bill seeks to create a future accountability and assessment system to ensure that our English language learners are fairly tested and that those schools with a large percentage of English language learner students are not inappropriately identified as low performing. This bill has no opposition, and recently our Superintendent of Public Instruction, Mr. Tom Torlakson, has taken a formal support position on the bill. There's bipartisan support. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 48, noes 24. The measure passes. Colleagues, we're going to move to the supplemental file. This is the supplemental file, and we're going to do assembly bills that are support within the supplemental file. First, so first one up is file number 205. This is file number 205, which is AB 882. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 882 by Assemblymember Cook and others, an act relating to military and veterans.
Mr. Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 882 will bring California in compliance with federal law. It will entitle service members and their dependents to in-state tuition at California's public universities, including UC, CSU's, community colleges. It ensures the service members and their dependents are entitled to resident status. As long as they remain continuously enrolled at that university, it has received unanimous support, and I ask for concurrence in the Senate amendments.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 73, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 206. This is AB 898. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 898 by Assemblymember Alejo and others, an act relating to crime victims and making appropriation therefore.
Mr. Alejo.
Mr. Speaker and members, AB 898 makes sure the Victims' Compensation Program continues to be a resource for crime victims and their families into the future. This bill makes the program viable by raising the minimum restitution fines for felonies and misdemeanors for the first time in 20 years. This bill has received unanimous support and has no opposition. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 74, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 207. This is AB number 946. Pass and retain. Re-referred to committee. File item 208, which is AB 1016. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1016 by Assemblymember Shajan, an act relating to state hospitals and making appropriation therefore.
Mr. Chajan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to ask for concurrence on Assembly Bill 1016. AB 1016 would clarify that the state controller can reimburse a county for the non-treatment costs associated with conducting mentally disordered offender trials. The Senate amendments were technical in nature and do not change the substance of the bill. The bill has received unanimous support through the process. I respectfully request concurrence in the state Senate amendments, and I vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 77, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 209, AB 1056. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1056 by Assemblymember Fong, an act relating to community colleges.
Mr. Fong.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. AB 1056 will require all California community colleges to adopt and implement an electronic transcripts process by 2015. Adopting electronic transcripts, this bill will save money and time by expediting the student transfer process. Senate amendments would provide that participating community colleges can opt out of participation in any future year. This bill is straightforward and easy to implement. It has bipartisan support in both houses and support from the California community colleges. I respectfully request your concurrence in Senate amendments.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 75, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 211, AB 1211. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1211 by Assemblymember Silva, an act relating for not-for-profit corporations.
Mr. Silva.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I bring to you AB 1211 on concurrence. This is a non-controversial measure with industry support and no known opposition. It is sponsored and supported by the Business Law section of the California Bar Association. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 76, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. Okay, colleagues, we're going to go back to Assembly third reading momentarily to take up file item 38. It's file item 38, AJR 18. Clerk will read.
Assembly Joint Resolution 18 by Assemblymember Carter relative to Sickle Cell Awareness Month.
Ms. Carter.
Mr. Chair and members, AJR 18 recognizes September 2011 as Sickle Cell Awareness Month. Sickle cell anemia refers to a group of inherited disorders that affect the red blood cells. In the bodies of people with sickle cell disease, their cells assume a sickle shape and become hard and sticky, blocking blood flow and preventing oxygen from getting through tissues, causing severe pain and damage to the organs. About 2.5 million people have sickle cell traits, meaning they carry one copy of the gene for the disease. Please join me in not only recognizing Sickle Cell Awareness Month, but urge the President and the Congress to restore funding for sickle cell anemia centers and research, as well as to make sickle cell anemia and other genetic blood disorder a public health priority. I respectfully ask for your aye vote and ask that the first row be open for co-authors.
Mr. Pan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker and members. I, too, ask for support for this important resolution. I also point out that hemoglobinopathies such as thalassemia are very common in the Southeast Asian population. So this is really a widespread problem, and I urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Carter has asked that the first roll be open for co-authors. Clerk will open the roll. Co-authors, all members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll and let the record reflect that this measure has 72 co-authors. We can take a voice vote on this, or no, I'm sorry, we need to take a roll call vote on this matter. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote, ayes 70, no 0. The measure is adopted. Okay, members, we have a couple items on call. We have one more support to take up. Any Assembly members who are not on the floor, we ask them to return before we lift the calls. We have one more support to take up, and that's file item 105. File item 105, SB 26. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 26 by Senator Padilla and others, an act relating to prisons and declaring an urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
Mr. Perea.
Mr. Speaker and members, SB 26 would prevent the smuggling and use of cell phones in our state prisons. In 2006, 261 cell phones were confiscated in California prisons. This year, we are on pace to exceed 13,000 cell phones. Law enforcement officials have confirmed that inmates with access to cell phones are ordering murders, organizing escapes, facilitated drug deals, controlling street gangs, accessing social network sites, and terrorizing victims. SB 26 is supported by a strong coalition of law enforcement and has bipartisan support. I respectfully ask for your aye vote, and I would like to ask for immediate transmittal to the Senate.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 74, no 0. The measure passes. Oh, I'm sorry. Ayes 74, no 0 on the urgency, and ayes 74, no 0 on the matter. The measure passes. And Mr. Perea requests immediate transmittal to the Senate.
Okay, we're going to lift the calls. We got 4 items on call, members. We're going to do it in order as they're listed on the computer. File item 10, AB 420. Clerk will post. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 41, noes 32. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 50, SB 536. Clerk will post. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 59, noes 12 on the urgency. Ayes 59, noes 12 on the measure. Measure passes. File item 63, SB 223. Clerk will post. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 42, noes 30. Measure passes. File item 66, SB 369. Clerk will post. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Mr. Monning moves the call. Okay, tomorrow, Thursday, September 8th, concurrence bills may be taken up without the one-day waiting period. Also, Thursday, September 8th, no reconsideration is in order on the last two legislative days preceding the interim recess on bills that pass. Tomorrow's schedule, Thursday, September 8th, session at 10 a.m. Friday, September 9th, session at 9 a.m. Okay, we have a couple of committees happening today upon adjournment. Committees meeting accountability and administrative review, room 447. Appropriations will meet in room 4202. Environmental safety and toxic materials will meet in the Rules Committee room. The Health Committee will meet in room 437, and the Natural Resources Committee will meet in room 126 upon call of the chair. Tomorrow, Thursday, September 8th, Revenue and Taxation will meet at 9:30 a.m. in room 126, and the Joint Legislative Audit Committee will meet at 9 a.m. in room 4202. Okay, we're going to lift the call on file item 66, SB 369. Clerk will post. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 33, noes 32. Measure fails. Mr. Monning asks for reconsideration. Mr. Calderon.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I just want to recognize my son, Ian Calderon, on the floor and introduce him and welcome him to the chambers.
Okay, I'm ready to entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Calderon moves and Mr. Hagman seconds that this House stands adjourned until Thursday, September 8th at 10 a.m. Quorum call is lifted.